And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer.
Howdy folks, Darren back with you here at Cross Timbers Farm. Welcome to 8th Day Chronicles, part 3 of our test plot basics for quality hay. And you may be able to see, well, before we get into that, disclaimer, it's about 92 degrees and the humidity's probably 75 to 80%. It's muggy, hot, and the little black gnats are out here somebody's gave them the battle cry. They're out here in swarms. So if you see some smoke drifting by, I have a cigar burning to try to keep the gnats at bay, and I'm going to be swatting a lot, so bear with me. Apologies up front. As you can see behind me, we're not in the test plot today. Why ain't you in the test plot? Because you're doing a test plot basics. We mowed and baled our test plot this last week. It's down to stubble. In the progression of our series, we just finished up a pretty long episode about weeds. I'm in our farthest back pasture. This pasture has not been cut for hay for a long time, many years. This past spring and winter, we did have a few dairy goats on this pasture, and they done a pretty good job. They ate down quite a bit of weeds, but we did not have enough foot traffic and head of animals on this property to really make much of a dent in it. When I say on this property, I should have said in this particular field. They did not make much of a dent in it. So we talked the last episode a lot about mowing and clipping and bush hogging. As you can see behind me, I don't know if you can see, let me pan the camera around for just a moment, and you should be able to see the debris, the grass, the weeds. It's been mowed, bush hogged for about 2 weeks now. The clippings and all are finally starting to decay down into the sod, which is a very good thing. We mowed this field probably a little too high. It was grown up pretty bad. The weed load back here is significant. I had a hay customer ask me, he looked back here off at a distance and saw it and said, why haven't you cut that for hay? He said, that looks like pretty good hay, why don't you cut it? And I told them that you should walk back there with me. I would not put my farm name on that hay yet. We're working on it. The grasses that we have back here from our inventory, we have a pretty good stand of orchard grass, a lot of tall fescue. We have some patches here and there of Timothy. We have here and there of red clover and ladino clover. We have some native grasses too. We also have some Kentucky bluegrass in a few spots. But this back pasture is probably 65% tall fescue. And I think over the winter, with frost seeding of orchard grass and some Timothy, we can start crowding out some of that tall fescue, because I like some fescue, but there's too much of it actually in this field, and the sweat's just dripping off me. So we're going to work on that. The last episode I talked a whole lot about getting your weeds under control, and you're looking at a couple of years down the road. If you go back in our playlist, you'll see a video of the beginnings of a new hay field. I'm standing in that field now. We started this project last year. We've yet to bale hay off of it. And it's probably going to be another year minimum before we can bale hay, maybe 2. It's a process, and we're working on that process. About 2 weeks ago, we bush hogged this whole field. We have bush hogged it and clipped it multiple times. I couldn't tell you, at least last year, at least 3 times. This year, 3, and probably do 2 more, for a total of 5 this year, to get those weeds under control. Bush hogging them and mowing and clipping before they seed. We've got a pretty major weed load back here of horse nettle, clammy, ground cherry, deer tongue. There's just a smorgasbord of weeds back here. We've really got to get under control. Okay, we've done the clipping over and over and over, the bush hogging. We're going to keep bush hogging, but it's almost time to start some spraying back here. I think we have got our weed load down to where it's not spreading anymore, and it has eliminated some. But on the same coin, flip it over, and there's some weeds that's persisting that our bush hogging and rotary cutting and stuff's just not having the effect on to move it on out. So we're gonna start with some spraying this here not long from now, and then we're going to start this winter. During our cold months, we're going to start frost seeding. We're looking forward to making hay off this property, this patch of ground. I've dug around. There's all kinds of biomass in the sod. The dirt's full of life. There's no reason we can't make quality hay on this. It's just going to take work. You've got your test plot perimeters established, and you've done an inventory of what's in your test plot, what grasses you have, what weed load you have or lack thereof, and if you have a lack thereof, God bless you. You've done all these inventories, you've sent off soil samples, you've got those analysis back. You know what your soil needs, what it's lacking, and what it's good in. Now you have been mowing, bush hogging, clipping, doing everything that you can, and even as a last resort, you've resorted to some spraying to control those weeds. Now it's time for you to sit down, and hopefully this is something you've been doing for a week or so. This is something that you've been looking at for your area of what hay grasses do I want growing in my field, in my test plot. What is my future for hay? A lot of that will determine where you are, your area. I've said this before, I have friends that live at a lot lower elevations in North Carolina, down toward the coast and around, that grow coastal Bermuda grass, and they have fantastic results with that hay with their customers. Coastal Bermuda grass or Bermuda grass in my area is a no-go. We went with diversity. We went with orchard grass, primary, tall fescue, timothy, and the clovers. That, for my area, is a high quality forage diversity mixture in our hay. This clump of hay right here, we have very leafy, nice orchard grass. And I'm talking about one little area here, about the size of a lid off of a 55-gallon barrel. It's not very big. We have very leafy orchard grass. We have tall fescue. It's just coming out of the boot stage. We have timothy. We have luscious red clover. We have let me get in here, it's lower down. We have all sorts ladino clover. You talk about a high quality smorgasbord for horses, or even your cattle or your goats or your sheep, whatever. They're going to be in hog heaven eating this stuff. You talk about high quality mixed grasses. We don't have a lot of timothy, but we still have some, and we've got enough of it to make it worthwhile to say this is orchard, tall fescue, and timothy, and then 2 types of clover legumes. Strive for diversity in your hayfield. Quality diversity. The red clover is one thing I've noticed about the timothy since we went to the red clover, so a lot more of it. We've noticed some of our timothy regrowing better. And I'm not a big timothy fan, but a lot of people are. So if your customer base wants some timothy, then you need to, I don't just concentrate on timothy, but I have no problems with scattering some timothy in our cool season grasses. Timothy is a very soft, palatable, high nutritional value hay. It's just finicky to grow. And a little bit about diversity in your hay. And I said this in another video. How many times do you go to a restaurant that has a salad bar and you go up and fix a salad and you fix a broccoli salad or a lettuce salad or a carrot salad? No, you're like me. You go in there and you put a little bit of everything on it. It looks like a salad bar exploded in your plate. You want all that good stuff. You want to mix it up to have a nice diversity of tastes and flavors and things that your livestock and people's horses and their cattle and sheep and goats are no different. Strongly suggest a diverse hay crop. Once you have sit down and come up with your plan, the cool season grasses you want, then you need to look at no-till drill, an attachment called no-till drill that goes on a tractor, and those implements are quite expensive. If you don't have one, or family or friends that you can borrow, you can look into possibly your co-op or your county extension agriculture office to rent one. A no-till drill is a fantastic option. It's going to cut into your budget some, but it's a fantastic option. You don't have to wait on weather. You can just go to using that thing. Frost seeding is fantastic. I've had people tell me no, frost seeding didn't work for them. I've had other people tell me 2 thumbs up, it worked fantastic. We tried it this past year for the first time this past winter, and we had very good results. I would guess probably 70%. Fantastic results. If my results would have been 50% or more, I would have been happy with frost seeding. Ours was better than that. We must have hit it just perfect. Frost seeding is all weather dependent. You can't frost seed. We got deer around here everywhere. There's one standing right down here. They tear our fences down continually. That's another subject, but I'm getting a little put out with all the deer around here. But anyway, Frost seeding, you can't go by a calendar or a time, of things of that nature. Frost seeding has to be done with the weather, and it has to be done exactly at that time in that window for the best results. Okay, once you've found out what grasses you want, it's time to start frost seeding. Now bear in mind, we've done the weeds, the mowing, spraying, all that, and we've prepped our fields and we're ready. When the frost seeding comes, frost seeding, planting some of your good, desirable grasses will actually start choking out some of your weeds if you get a good established stand going. And according to your soil samples, you fertilize, you do whatever's necessary to get that stand strong and vigorous and healthy and spreading. It will start crowding out some of your weeds. Now you're going to have some problem weeds, probably like me, that will still require attention all the time. But crowding those weeds with desirable grasses and your desirable forage, legumes, whatever you've decided on, is your next step. Let's start crowding those out. I've seen that happen. This pasture right here is probably 65%, maybe even 70% tall fescue. While I do like tall fescue, I don't want it in that high of numbers. So we're going to start frost seeding this with orchard grass and timothy to start pushing back some of that tall fescue. You've seeded your pasture, your hayfield. You've got a good stand coming up. Whether that be Bermuda, ryegrasses, fescue, whatever the case may be, timothy, and your test plot's looking really good. Okay, it's time for you to cut that hay. You're going to get your very first cutting off that test plot. Fantastic. You have reached a huge milestone. When do you cut that test plot? And this can be applied to any kind of hay field. It don't have to be your test plot, but we're doing a test plot series, so we're going to stick with that. What stage, where do you cut your hay? That test plot's ready to cut, you think. Is it ready to cut when it's waist high? Is it ready to cut when it's shoulder high? Anything below waist high is too early, is it? No, absolutely not. I see way too many people cutting hay that's way past prime. They have waited way too long. Yes, their yield is going to go way up because there's more volume. That second growth, I've even seen almost a third growth start trying to push up through that initial first growth. They've waited way too long. That hay is way past prime. The nutritional value of that hay has been on a steady decline for weeks and weeks. Numbers of bales. I see too many people with that same mentality. They're after numbers. The more hay they can stack in their barn, the more comfortable they feel. If you'll cut your hay at the right time, the right stage of growth for the highest nutritional value of that hay, your stock will eat less of that hay than they will the low quality hay. Cut your hay at the prime time. What's prime time? You'll hear us refer to a term called the boot stage. And no, that don't mean your grasses decide to go down to the local shoe store and put on some boots. Boot stage means the seed head is developing in that grass, and it's by sunlight and moisture and nutrients from the ground and the maturity stage of that hay, it's starting to push up through the stem of that, the main stem of that grass, to develop out into a seed head. You want to cut your hay when it's in that last 2/3 of the boot stage. If I'm not mistaken, you go back and do your own research, but everything that I have read says that most cool season grasses And bear in mind, if you deal with other types of grasses than we do, your mileage may vary. But for the cool season grasses, high quality forages that we grow on our farm, orchard grass is king here. Timothy, tall fescue, and our legumes. We'll classify those legumes separately for right now. We're just talking about the grasses. The last 2/3 of the boot stage of that grass is when it is prime. From everything that I've read and studied, that's when you need to cut that hay, just before that seed head emerges. Okay, I'm gonna give you some examples of that. Okay, folks, I've got my 4-wheeler, my ATV parked right over here, and I got some grasses laying on it. So if I walk out of the camera picture and right back, I'm picking up some grasses. Okay. In my hand, I have Mighty Orchard grass. This stuff is phenomenal forage, phenomenal hay, high in nutrient value, especially if you cut it at the right time. Okay, we're going to start out with one that's, well, actually I've got 2 here that's seeded. This is Mighty Orchard grass. This is good stuff. This is our #1 choice. This hay, this particular one has already seed headed. The seed, it's come out of the boot stage into the seed stage. It has not been in the seed stage very long because you can see the seeds are still tightly growing together. This is pretty fresh out of the boot stage. When you look at your hay field, none of it's going to all be in the same stage. You're going to have some of the orchard grass here, there, and yonder that they're not punching a time clock. They're not on the same schedule. Some of them's going to seed head out a little before the rest. You want to look at it and gauge when the majority is. This is about 5-week hay right here. It's already seed headed. This is a little past prime. Here is another beautiful orchard grass. Already seed. Now this one has just seed headed out probably in the last day or 2. You can see that the sheath is still over it down here at the bottom. Right here. There's still seed head trying to emerge. Most of it's already out. This is darn good hay right here. Even though it's got a seed head on it, I would bet under analysis this right here is very high in nutrients. I feel like the camera's a little dark under this shade. Tall fescue. Very nice tall fescue. You can see the seed head has just emerged. It's still in the sheath all the way to right there. Part of the sheath is curved back kind of like a banana peel. High quality tall fescue right here. Is it past prime? No. This is still good. High nutritional value. And lastly, Timothy. Very leafy, soft, palatable Timothy. This one is prime. As you can see, the seed head is right there. It has just emerged from the sheath. Very leafy or Timothy. That's prime. In another couple of weeks, this will be past prime, but right now that is fantastic. Timothy, that is absolutely prime. The seed head is right there, right at the end. I mean, right at the tip. This, if there's ever been an example of when to cut your hay, right there it is. This is fantastic. I'm going to get up a little bit close. Can you see that seed head starting to come out of that sheath? It's almost, if I peel this back, you'd see it. Look at there, just come out. It only come out because I peeled it out. Absolute prime. that's when you cut your hay. Are you going to get as much yield? Probably not. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Everything else being equal, when you cut your hay at prime, your yield is going to go down just a little bit. Your yield's going to be here. If you let it go past prime and keep growing to the point the nutritional value starts going down. But what happens, you want to cut this when all that nutrients is in this stem, and instead of trying to grow taller and taller, it's producing the seed head. That's when your hay grasses are going to be rich in nutrient value, and your livestock, your horses, goats, sheep, whatever, are going to go nuts over it. This is good stuff. So I hope that helps a little bit of the whens. We went over frost seeding, and if you have that option, no-till drill in the last video. And I see way too many people mowing their hay, baling hay when it's past prime, or sometimes I've seen some people doing it way before prime. But I would much rather, if I had to choose one of the two, I would take that before prime hay before I would that past prime hay. Cutting your hay at the prime time is paramount. Also is baling your hay at the proper moisture content. There is a lot of YouTube videos out there from very reputable farmers, very high quality haymakers, about when to bale your hay at moisture contents. So I'm not going to dive very deep into that, but I will say that your hay needs baled. You took all these pains to make this quality hay. You cut it at the right time. You've got this high quality hay ready to go through your baler. It's also just as important that you bale that stuff at the right time. You don't let that stuff get dry as dust down to 5% moisture, but you don't bale it at 30% moisture either. You've done all this hard work. You don't want to let your hay lay there and the nutritional value of it just dive off to nothing at the last stage. You want to keep that quality in that bale at all cost almost. So you've done so much work, you don't want it to ruin at the last moment. So I hope this has helped about when to bale your hay, what growth stage of cool season grasses that we have. The grasses you are dealing with could be a little bit different. Do your research. Refer to good materials, the Southern Forages book, and stay after your weeds. Part 3 of our test plot basics is wrapping up here. There's no shortcuts to high quality hay. They're just not, especially if you're a small family farm, a small scale farmer. Over the last several years, I've found there's just no shortcuts. It's going to take labor. It's going to take time and effort. The majority of our time and effort has been in battle with weeds. In this new pasture, new hay field here that we've been developing for the last year or two, there's some weeds back here that we've mowed, clipped, bush hogged, and there's some that's just persisting. Common blue violet, it's a little leafy weed that grows right along the ground that our bush hogging has had very little effect on because it's so low to the ground. My next step is to bring the Kubota, and we have a Woods rotary cutter. I'm going to bring that rotary cutter back out here, and I'm going to lower this bush hog about as low as I can get it to the ground, because we have a real clean field here. There's hardly no rocks or anything of that nature. I'm going to lower this. I've been mowing it a little higher to try not to traumatize the desirable grasses we have. But I'm going to have to lower that bush hog right down about as low as it'll go, an inch or two, and I'm going to have to go through and cut this again. Probably do that this week. And give it a little bit, see the results, and then it may be time to drag out the cannon. By that I mean the boom sprayer. But it's a work in progress. This is not going to happen overnight. Your test plot's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a work in progress for some time. If you'll persist and stay with it, high quality hay will be your prize at the end. We have, as I said, that common blue violet weed. We have horse nettle, clammy ground cherry, and right here is a nemesis too. Let me just pull one. Deer tongue. This stuff's terrible. I mean terrible. 2,4-D applications have no effect on this whatsoever. It's actually considered a grass, but it's a undesirable grass. And we have some panic grass. I can deal with the panic grass a whole lot better than this. The panic grass is, you know, it's undesirable too, but we don't have it in larger, really spread out in a nemesis type numbers like we do some of this deer tongue and horse nettle, clammy ground cherry. We've got some issues back here we really got to work on, and it's going to be a yearly thing probably. I know some folks that's just had to spray their whole field with glyphosate or something like that, kill off everything, and then disc it and start over. I hope that your hayfield don't have to come to that. If yours is like this one, I can reclaim this hayfield without having to disturb the soil. I'm almost confident I can. It's just going to take some work. So we're going to get back at it. It's a really hot day here, and we're looking forward to maybe next year or the year after, one of the two. We'll judge it next spring when we can finally take high quality hay off this field. So your test plot will be no different. Just stay with it. That test plot, what we're doing here, we learned this first in our test plot. That test plot will teach you a lot. It's an excellent school. It's been a great school for me. Everything that I've learned, I've done in our other hay fields over here, and in this reclaiming this new one, it's saved me a lot of trial and error. So thanks for being with us here. I hope this isn't so dark you can't see me under the shade. Thanks for being with us here on the farm today on this hot July day, and I hope you've learned some things from the Test Plot Basics series. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. Would love to converse with you. Post up a picture of your test plot, what you're doing. Love to hear it. Absolutely love to hear it. We can learn from each other. We're looking forward to our second cut of hay. It's going to be a couple more weeks, maybe a month. It's going to be a little while. I'm anticipating our second, on our main hay field, our second cut of hay, looking at our growth stage and our weather patterns that we're in right now. I'm anticipating probably the 1st of September. So we got, July's almost over, we got September, August, and then maybe the 1st of September we'll cut. But we'll be sure to bring you along for that. And we'll keep you updated on the progress of this reclaimed hayfield that we're working on. And this will go right along with your test plot, what you're doing in your test plot. Keep up the hard work, guys, and we really appreciate you. If you have it, you can take your mouse cursor and go down to the little icon on the right hand of the screen, the lower right hand. You'll see a little icon with our farm logo on it. Hover over that. A button will pop up that says subscribe. Then you can click on that and subscribe to our channel. We would really appreciate your subscribing, and click the notification bell to be notified when we load more updates. And I think we'll have one more video in our test plot series, but this is getting close to wrapping that up. So we hope you've learned something from the test plot basics. We'll go over just a few more things, a short video to close that series out, but we really appreciate you being with us and all the very nice comments that people's left, and I feel like we got a whole group of friends here. God bless you and your family, and hope you have a great day. We got some pretty good stands of orchard grass in different places, but we've got a lot of, there's some deer tongue. We've got a lot of this common blue violet that we got to deal with, and it's pretty well about everywhere. We've got some horse nettle. As you can see, this common blue violet stuff is just a nemesis. Red clover. There's a horse nettle. We've got that stuff in the deer tongue, but we're going to deal with it. As you can see, we got a lot of biomass in the ground down here from this bush hog, and this stuff will be good for the ground.